As we finish our credit unit and our different types of bankruptcies, we'll look at both Chapter 7, Chapter 11, and Chapter 13 bankruptcy. That's the way they're labeled. There are other bankruptcies out there, but these are the three most common. If we put it in Mr. Clem terms, Chapter 7 bankruptcy is called the sell stuff bankruptcy. That could be for individuals or companies. We could have something called Chapter 11 bankruptcy, which that's the reorganize bankruptcy, and that's for businesses. And then we have Chapter 13, which I kind of call the repay part of your debt style bankruptcy, and that's for individuals. Chapter 7 bankruptcy. Key to all bankruptcies is it is a court-approved plan. This is not something you do on your own and pick and choose. You apply essentially to file for bankruptcy. The court judge or the court-appointed trustee will meet with you, meet with your creditors, the people you owe money to, look at the style of bankruptcy that you're trying to file and decide, are you approved to file this type of bankruptcy? If so, then the bankruptcy can proceed. The people involved, you were able to retain a certain amount of exempt assets, meaning you, the person who owes money, you usually are able to keep a place to live, a vehicle, and some personal items. If you are a company, like the Excelsior Henderson example we talked about in the last video, that company will shut down. That company will end, and all of the assets that the company has will be possessed by the court and then most often sold at auction. If we're talking individuals, the example I would use would be like a Denny Hecker. He was a car dealership guy, and he ended up filing a bankruptcy, and they ended up asking him to, court took possession of his second home, third home, vehicles, toys, cabins, things of that nature, and sold those at auction, used that money to pay back the creditors of the people that they owed money to. So people file Chapter 7 bankruptcy, companies file Chapter 7 bankruptcy. You are selling your essential, non-essential stuff. From a personal standpoint, if it's a company, the company is shutting down. Of the types of bankruptcy, this is the quickest or the quicker bankruptcy. This could take 3 to 6 months for the court to take possession of things, sell those items, and then go pay back the creditors. Again, it is a court-approved plan. Court taking ownership of your possessions. Court will then sell the possessions and collect the money. Court will then distribute the money to the creditors, assuming they sign off on the deal. And then after that, your debts are discharged, or essentially you don't have to pay on those debts anymore. If there is an example of fraud, or you're hiding money or something of that nature, you could have one of the creditors sign off. The creditors don't have to sign off. They may say, out of spite, no, we're not going to sign off on this bankruptcy, and they may try to sue you civilly. Whether that's successful or not, that's another question. But if the creditors sign off, they will get a portion of whatever assets are sold, and they may not be made whole. They may not get all of what they're owed. Unlikely they would do business with you again. But that's how it works. You kind of throw your hands up in the air. The court takes possession and sells all your non-essential stuff, or shuts the company down. And assuming the creditors sign off, they're paid a small portion of what they're owed, and after that, they have to let you go. When we look at Northwest Airlines is an example of a Chapter 11 bankruptcy. This is for companies only. This is also a court-approved plan. All bankruptcies are court-approved plans. The company can still make a go of it. The company can still provide their service, sell their product, but they're not able to do it assuming they're stuck paying the existing bills that they have or the contracts that they're in. The court will allow the business to restructure some of those contracts. You're able to, in this case of Northwest Airlines, they were able to break their contracts with their pilots and their flight attendants and their mechanics to say, well, here's the deal. We promised we'd pay the pilots, and again, I'm just making the numbers up. We're promising to pay the pilots $80,000 a year in salary, and the flight attendants $40,000, and the mechanics, $70,000. If we pay you guys what we promised we would pay you in your contract through your union, the company can't make money due to 9/11. In this example, revenues are going down. People are not flying like they used to. Cost of TSA going up. All the new rules and regulations. We cannot afford to make a profit. If we can restructure, if we can say, rather than paying the pilots 80, we're going to pay you 60. Rather than paying the flight attendants 40, we're going to pay you 35. Rather than paying the mechanics, 70, we're going to pay you 50. And again, just completely making those numbers up. If we're able to break the old contract, create a new contract, we could still run as a company. But if we got to honor the existing contracts, we cannot. So in layman's terms, that's kind of what a Chapter 11 bankruptcy is. They break old contracts, they restructure. Could be a similar idea where maybe Northwest Airlines had a hub and they had a lease with Chicago O'Hare Airport. And they said, you know what, we don't make enough money flying people to Chicago anymore, hypothetically, but we can't get out of this lease. We promised we'd rent this space at Chicago O'Hare for the next 10 years. Well, if we're stuck doing that, we're going to continue to lose money. So we're going to file bankruptcy, Chapter 11 bankruptcy. It'll allow us to get out of that deal. And then now, Chicago O'Hare is kind of stuck with, hey, we got a spot for an airline, but it's not going to be Northwest Air anymore. Some of those debts will be paid back over 3 to 5 years, so this is a much longer bankruptcy. The court is going to monitor to make sure all of those debts are paid or the amount of debt is paid back. You're not paying back the full amount if it's a loan or a debt situation. But once you've honored your end of the deal, paying back, and I hesitate to put a number to it, whether you're paying back a third of what you're owed or a quarter of what you're owed, it's not even close to the amount of money you owe other people. You restructure and say, well, we can make a go of it if we can cut our debts down. If we only have to pay you half of what we owe you, we can still run as a company. So we're going to file this type of bankruptcy. Over the next 3 to 5 years, we'll pay back a small amount of what we owe. Assuming we're able to do that, then again, the debts are discharged, meaning you don't have to pay the rest. But again, a very serious thing to do. It's not something you take lightly. Again, the debtor can also terminate burdensome contracts or leases, recover some assets, rescale their operation in order to go back to profitability. Under Chapter 11, the debtor normally goes through a period of consolidation and emerges with a reduced debt load and a reorganized business that can make a profit. Chapter 13 bankruptcy is similar to Chapter 11, however, it's for individuals. So it's still a court-approved plan. It's for people only. Companies who want to restructure are 11. People who try and restructure are 13. You're able to keep most of your assets, and the court will come up with an appropriate repayment plan. The debtor will pay back a portion of that debt over a 3 to 5 year period of time. Debts are not discharged, meaning you're not off the hook until you've made good on the renegotiated deal, if you will, until those 3 to 5 years are over. Unlike Chapter 7, the debtor gets not an immediate discharge of the debts. You have to make good on the negotiated repayment plan. The debtor must complete that payment schedule before they're going to receive a discharge of their debts.